Hi there, this is Sheena Rowlands. Today I'm sharing with you my latest layout for Hey Little Magpie. And for this layout I'm using the Pinkfresh Studio Lovely Blooms collection. As you can see, I've already used some of it before, but I'm going to use this Spread Love paper as my background. So I've gathered together some bits and pieces in the tray on my left, mainly journaling strips, words and phrases, and the puffy words as well. And I'm trying to match things to the colour stripes that are actually in the paper. So I'm going like a tone on tone-ish type of effect. And I want to use this 6x4 black and white family photograph. So I'm aiming to run everything down the centre of this layout because I've got ideas of how I want to alter this a little. So I brought in some white cardstock. It's just a 12x12 basil to go behind this patterned paper. So at the moment I'm just trying to weigh up where I want things to go. I'm going to add some softness either side of the photo with some of these flowers. And I'm just having a look what pieces I've got left because I've already made 2 or 3 layouts from this range already. And I really like those leaves, so I will be cutting them up and adding them in later on. So if you haven't checked out this range in the Hey Little Magpie store, I'd really recommend you have a look at this and many more. They've got all the current ranges and a wide variety of things in store, particularly some wax seals and wax, which is now new to the store. And I'm certainly going to have a play with those in a future video. So I've got an idea that I like the words that I've chosen, and I'm going to now start by sticking down the photograph. I want it to be pretty symmetrical, so I'm just using my lined ruler just to get it where I want in the centre there. And as you can see, I've chosen some words and phrases to run down the paper, mimicking the colours of the paper below it. Just brought in some craft foam here. It's just from the children's department of a craft store, and I'm going to actually lift some of these phrases up just to add a little bit of dimension down the centre of the layout. So rather than using a number of foam pads, I'm just going to use those bits of foam to help me lift those up. And I'm just using some double-sided tape to stick them into position. So I'm like the way they're looking. I'm just bringing the ruler back in just to try and make sure I stay pretty central. Also, I'm trying to add one word or phrase to essentially one colour block if I can. Some of the words like today are quite big, but actually I'm just trying to put one within each colour line, if that makes sense. And it does read quite well, or at least to start with family time, remember what really matters today. And I really like that as the start of the title. And that's kind of what persuaded me to work in this format at the very beginning. So I'm still just trying to get things into position. The word today is massive, and I'm trying not to cover anybody's face in the photograph. So I'm actually going to reposition that tiny bit just to get the word today in. I'm actually going to end up adding some foam possibly to the back of this so that I can lift it up. So that it's a little bit raised over the photograph and the phrase above it. So I'm actually doing something I do a lot, and I'm cutting the foam pads into little strips. It's a bit fiddly, and I'm just picking the backs off now so I can stick it into place. But it's just so I can hide it behind the puffy word, just to lift that up a little bit. So I managed to stick it down without covering anybody's face. And then I decide I'm going to alter the 12x12 paper. So I've brought in some straws. I'll come back to those in a moment. And I've got a pair of scissors there, but I actually decide I don't want to use them. I decide I'm going to use this slide guillotine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut from the outside in both sides, not all the way along, but as far as the word or the phrase. It will make more sense the more I do, if that makes sense. And I'm going to work my way down all the colours. So obviously, because I've stuck the words and phrases to this, you could still use scissors. You don't need to use a guillotine at all. And it isn't the easiest because I've stuck things down, but it was very difficult to gauge how far to cut when I hadn't stuck things down at the very beginning. And also this was an idea that was really just in the back of my head, and I wasn't quite sure how it was going to play out. So I had to think on my feet a little bit. So I've come in with the scissors to cut the shorter stripes where the flowers are either side of the photograph. There's no point cutting too far behind them because you won't see it. I also cut some straws up, you'll see more of those, but they are shorter than the actual width of the strips that I've now cut. So the idea is I'm going to start in the centre, which possibly I made it harder for myself, but I want to actually curl the paper back on itself. Now at the sides of the photograph there is very little paper there. I do apologise to keep flipping it backwards and forwards, it's not so easy to watch, but the idea is just to curl the paper back on itself, and I'm going to use the straw, and I've used double-sided tape to stick it there to actually make sure it holds its position, so that when it goes in the album it won't get flattened because the straw is actually going to be inside it. You won't see the black. I did bring in two sizes or widths of straws at the very beginning, and I went for the bigger one. So they're already in the tray cut. So I'm doing it symmetrically, so I've rolled both sides of the middle section, and then I'm going to work out either side of that. I also want them to follow a pattern. So we're going to start the widest by the photograph, and they're going to get narrower. I do mess with that a little bit, but can you now see with the white cardstock behind that you can actually see it peeping round the sides? And I'm starting to like the way this looks. I am going to use some of the red line tape because it's really strong, to stick those down to the white cardstock. I decided I was going to stick it to the white cardstock at the very end, but I actually decided it was going to be better if I started by sticking it down from the beginning. So I've stuck the underside of the photograph to the white cardstock, so only the centre of the layout is stuck, so obviously so that I can continue to work on the sides. What I will say, and you're going to see a little bit of this, is I've got my nails painted. I've actually got gel nails on for this layout because I'd just come back from a holiday, and they're not something that I can have very often in my profession. And my goodness me, I can't get the back off any tape or any foam pads with them on. Honestly, I can't believe that having that little bit of thickness on my nails can actually scupper me. And you'll see me using a pair of sharp scissors there to try and get the back off the red tape, where normally I wouldn't have any issues at all. So I do make myself laugh when I watch this back. And it's like a little battle that I'm having with each strip that I do. But as you can see, I've started in the centre and I'm working my way out. So the idea is that it's really quite thick pattern paper that they do for Pinkfresh Studio. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape on it first, start to curve it over, then I can pop the straw in as well. Then put the red line tape on the bit that's going to touch the white cardstock, and then stick it down to the base layer. So now it's all starting to come together, even though I'm having a few issues with the tape. I'm liking the way that it looks, and I believe that it brings the focus to the words and to the photograph. You won't see me doing all of it, we'll come back in a bit later, but for now I do think maybe I shouldn't have done the shorter ones first, and maybe I should have done the longer ones as there would be more paper to play with, but hey, that's what comes when you try something new, isn't it? And I like the way I'm just trying to balance both sides of this. So the photograph for me is really quite special. It was taken earlier this year. I will add some journaling to this layout right at the very end. Was taken on my dad's 80th birthday, and every family member is in the photograph, so that's what makes it pretty special. So the centre is completely done now, and now I'm looking at working on the stripes either side, and they are going to be even shorter still, but because there's less on them, it is definitely easier to curve them. And you can see how I've just folded them under there, and I will add some double-sided tape and I will pop the straws in and use the red line to finally stick them down. So it's quite a simple technique, quite easy to do. The more of these stripes you do, the more I feel like you perfect it. So I can tell you I got quicker and quicker the more of these that I actually did. And I would probably recommend starting at the top and bottom and working your way to the centre should you do this technique yourself. So the majority of the strips are now done. As you can see, the one for Remember is wider than the one above. I do come back in right at the very end and change that so that they actually taper all in at the top, and I will actually do the very same at the bottom. So I like the way they just curve at the edges, and the centerpiece is all stuck down. So I come back in with the enamel dots for this range, and I'm going to place those in some of the centres of the flowers, and I add the word Here and Now to the right of the photograph, as it's a different sentiment to all of the others, and it matches the colours it's sitting on approximately, so I think that works really well. So I'm going to finish this off camera and also alter the direction of those couple of strips as well. So this is the finished layout. Really like the dimension it's got. It's not overdone as far as I'm concerned, so it's not too poofy in the album. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel and check out this range in the Hey Little Magpie store. And we hope to see you here again real soon. Bye for now.